Water and mountains have shaped my life. Like many other Appalachian children, I grew up playing in the creek and climbing the mountains around my family's home in eastern Kentucky. Our small holler even took its name from the creek that ran through it, Dorton Branch. During the summer months, I waded in its current, overturning rocks in search of crawdads. My friends and I would spend hours there, catching minnows and planning our next fishing trip, often to the music of Dwight Yoakam and Patty Loveless that drifted from neighboring porches. Once, just before Wednesday night church, I took a dare from a friend that I could swing across the creek on a grapevine. Halfway across, the vine snapped, dropping me into the water with a splash. Soaked to my waist, I sulked inside to a back pew, my shoes squishing with each step to the beat of There's Power in the Blood. My dad dealt with me later that night at home. The creek wasn't always my friend, though. Each spring seemed to bring a flood and new lines of worry on my mother's face. A child of poverty, she and her family had often been forced out of their home by the floodwaters. Pain choked her voice as she recalled being roused by her grandmother in the middle of the night and led to their front porch, where she and her sister were lifted into a waiting rowboat. After the waters receded, they'd go back, salvage what they could, and start over. She told me this once just after a powerful flash flood had covered the road in front of our own house in 1990. They hardly ever came like this, she noted. They seemed to get faster and stronger every year. Statistics from the National Weather Service, the United States Geological Survey, and the Office of Surface Mining support my mother's observations, as do testimony from residents throughout the Appalachian coal fields. You can't blame this on God, wrote Denver Mitchell, a witness to disastrous flooding in Logan County, West Virginia, in a letter to the Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition. Blame it on who's doing it, Massey Coal and all of the other coal corporations. For decades, Big Coal has laid waste to Appalachia through mountaintop removal mining. Since 1985, more than 1,200 miles of streams have been impacted as a result of this devastation. Over 800 square miles of mountains have been destroyed. Each year, the explosive equivalent of 58 Hiroshima-sized atomic bombs is detonated by the coal industry in the region. There's a saying in the anti-mountaintop removal movement that what we do to the land, we do to the people. The residents of Appalachia are realizing this, and it's moving them to speak out. Their voices are joining with others from across the country. They're echoing from the streets of Manhattan to the mountains of Georgia. They're ringing from the plains of Illinois to the open ranges of Wyoming. And now, at long last, they're being heard in the halls of Congress and in the White House. Many of these protests are collected in this volume. They're the work of students, writers, artists, and activists from 17 states. Some are from celebrated writers, others are being published for the first time. There's the fifth grader who is determined to fight mountaintop removal until he's, quote, laid in the ground. The high school student who knowingly sacrificed a lucrative college scholarship funded by the coal industry by decrying their abuse of the land in an essay. The best-selling novelist who confronts her own lackluster efforts at conservation. Each piece, whether it is an essay, editorial, short story, poem, or song, is an eloquent tribute to the land, people, water, and heritage of Appalachia that mountaintop removal is destroying. What I find particularly special about this anthology is that it establishes the younger writers as members of a national movement against the runaway industry. My hope is that their inclusion will be a first step in a lifetime of fighting for social justice in Appalachia and beyond, to be, as Bobby Kennedy once said, a tiny ripple of hope that will build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. Now that's a flood I'd like to see in my creek.